we're gonna make this fly. It's a mayfly nymph. Or, you know, who knows what the fish think it is. But yeah, mayfly nymph. Fish it like a bunch of nymphs. I developed this pattern when I was living in Tennessee to look like some of the little flathead mayfly nymphs that are in there. I like the bead head because then I don't end up using like split shot because you can get it down there. I usually use a tungsten one because it sinks faster, but I'm not sure what that is. Probably steel or something. Anyway, you need a hook. I like to tie these in number 14, but you can tie them in whatever size you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the vise right quick. After, of course, I mash down the bottom.
Show me that. What are you doing there? What are you doing that for?
Smashing down the barb.
Don't you need that to
Nice
catch the fish?
Nope. Nope. Okay, putting it in the vise. Something like that. Okay. I use like an olive thread for this. It's a nymph, so you don't necessarily need to be too, you can use a little bit more thread, although you can still get crowded. I don't know. Let's tie it that way. And as I always do when I tie stuff with bead heads, I forget to put my bead head on. So I'm just taking our little teeny tiny metal bead, put it on the hook. It is hard to do, harder to show. There you go. There's like a slotted end and a not slotted end, and you want to hook the smaller one so that can hug the eye of your hook better. Then put it back in the vise because I'm forgetful. Alright, we're gonna need, we got a hook, we got the bead head, we need to get wire, some turkey, like tail feather quill, or really any dark feather that kind of sticks together like that. I like to use turkey. In the past I have used pheasant, but you also want a pheasant tail feather, and we're going to use this side, like the more red fibers. I got my dubbing wax. Oh, and then a piece of hackle. I knew I was forgetting something. I like to do like kind of a rusty red brown hackle. Let's see. And I have a good bag. Yeah. Got some of this neck hackle. It's pretty old, a little bleached, but Neckle, yep. I'm gonna use a piece of that. So anyway, that's all the things you need. Here's what we'll do now. Start my thread. I start up behind the bead head, and then I come tighten it. Some people build a little, they call it a thread dam that stops the bead head from moving around. But for better or for worse, I always end up pushing that, like kind of crowding up on the bead head when I'm done tying anyway. So I don't bother, just to save on a little bit of bulk. Even though it's a nymph, you don't want it to get crowded up by your head, the head of your thing. So now I'm gonna take, I don't know, probably like 6 of these or something. What's that, 5? Fish can't count, so it doesn't really matter. But just a nice tail. And yeah, pull against the grain of those and they'll pop right out, just like any really fibers. And measure them up again as long as the shank of your hook. These hooks are 1 time longer than the dry fly hooks, but honestly, I mean, you can change the length of your tail to suit. Just look at the local bug, you know. The ones, I was using these in the middle prong river, the middle prong of the Little River in the Smoky Mountain National Park. And they had some long tails, but then some other places also mayflies that have short tails, so you know, adjust accordingly. And then I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little trim too. Now what I'm gonna do, probably wrap up about there. I'm gonna take this little bit of wire, copper wire. Gives it just a teeny bit of flash, although with this particular bead head on here, it is flashy. I'm gonna come back to the bend of my hook to get that really good. And now we're gonna dub the body. I'm gonna pull out about that much. Get my dubbing wax. Give it a little scoop, 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 scoopity, scoop, scoop. Probably about to there. I usually end up putting way too much, so you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shrink it back a turn of the spool or so. This can have a more bulky looking body than the dry fly, for sure. So even though I said I sometimes put too much on, you can have a nice thick noodle. Make them a dubbing noodle. But again, check out the bugs. You know they can have quite their regional variance. So it's fun to be able to cater it to that because I don't know. You might want to find a darker dubbing or different colored legs or tails or whatever. Okay. Give that a couple more turns. Go. Ooh, don't catch it. Getting fancy with the rotary vise. Okay. I'll make this one with a nice, pretty thick abdomen here. One of the last steps we'll do is actually kind of like brush this out a little bit because mayflies have those, do one more. Alright. We're just gonna go ahead and do the whole thing. That's fine right there. Mayflies have all these gills along their abdomen, so when you brush it out, it's nice. Make it nice and flowy. I'm gonna throw a half hitch right here, and again try to get it behind that bead head. So I like kind of save my progress, which is handy to do every once in a while. Flip it up onto the spool, and I'm gonna wrap my wire around it. I don't want to do like too tight because I don't want to compress all that dubbing. So I'm not really pulling that tight, especially around there. And then at that point you can get the tight one. Pinching that position, 1, 2, 3 over it, 2, 3 behind it, 1 more over it for good measure. Then I go this. Off. And you know, honestly, that's probably enough to do a whole nother nymph. It can get hard with how small they are. I gotta write all this stuff down one day. Okay, and now we're gonna find one of these little neck hackles. You can kind of use whatever. Try to find a nice short one. In the past, short as in length of fibers. But since this doesn't have to float, you don't have to worry about sizing it like you do for a dry fly. So sometimes you can like trim them, which, you know, to make them even, or get a little fancy if you want to. But I usually don't worry about it, just because they got some pretty long arms and yeah, just fish it well. I brought some of those fibers back and made a little tie point here so I don't catch any of those under it. And just kind of catch it a couple times. Okay, that'll be good enough. Trim it off, sorry. Keep blocking it. And then, so one of the last things we'll do is we'll take our turkey quill. We'll probably take about half that. That's like a centimeter or so. Pop it off. Turkey quill's nice sometimes because it can. No, that one didn't do it. Sometimes they'll stick together nice. I'm gonna go ahead and trim these off because it can get a little brittle. I have that into a flat-ish little bend, and I'm gonna just catch that on top. Just through a soft loop over there, and then you can really kind of crank down. And I'm gonna tie that on. I got a little bit of space in front of it right now. That's all just thread. Okay. I'm just gonna trim that a little bit. Okay. So now what we'll do, I'm gonna wrap. I'm gonna do another half hitch. Drop her on the old cradle. I'll spin this hackle around. Get it nice and pretty dense, but you don't need too much. To about there. Pinch. Get that bobbin cradle out of there. Trying to brush back some of those fibers. So I throw about 3 wraps over. 1, 2, 3 behind it. And I'm going to trim that off as close as I can without losing some of those fibers that I wanted. Okay. So those are like our legs. We got our abdomen, tails, our legs. And then I'm going to take the quill from our turkey and fold it over, again, pushing back some of those leg fibers. And I'll pinch it into position. Just get that one loop on there. Do about 3 loops. And then I'm going to pull that back again. 3 loops again. And then I try to trim it so when it lays flat, it's going to be in the middle of that first turkey quill segment. Because that's the wing casing. We just tied on the wing casing of the insect. And they have like a pretty defined wing casing, and there's like these little wing buds, if you will. So I'm going to do something like that. Right now, it's just standing up. But you can throw some more thread wraps on there to push it back. It will also just tend to lay down flat over time. And then I whip finish. It's kind of hard with beadheads sometimes. Just take time. There we go. So, like I said, I use this fly in Tennessee. I use it. Went to just kind of all over the southeast, I guess. Carolina, North Carolina. I used it a couple times when I was in Colorado with great success. I like it. Let's see it. Flathead mayfly.